welcome to Where the Ramp Ends. I'm Summer Parrish, and my co host is.
Bryce Wooten, and welcome to Where the Ramp Ends. Our wonderful guest today is a statewide disability advocate and par- partners in policymaking graduate, and an individual that lives on the autism spectrum. Please welcome Tyler Bond. Tyler,
Thank you.
thank you for joining us for Where the Ramp Ends. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you so much, Bryce.
Tyler, Bryce and I know you through Partners in Policymaking, but we want to share with the world about who you are and your views and your experience in the disability community. So, for our listeners meeting you for the first time, how would you describe yourself beyond labels or your diagnosis?
I mean, I'm just I wouldn't say an average guy, but really, who's normal? What's people basing normal off of? I like different things, just like everybody else likes different things, like anime, video games. I'm really into ministry, and you know, trying to been recently got into advocacy stuff for the past. Geez, I want to say I said recently, but I think it's been slowly like accelerating since 2017. So that's been quite a while. Um, but it doesn't feel like that. um, yeah, but it's just people are different. I'm different, and that's what's fun and beautiful about life.
What are some of your interests or passions that might surprise people to learn about you?
And I'm kind of, it's really funny. I wouldn't say I'm kind of like the stereotype, but like when people think of when the media or meme culture thinks of people about autism, oh, they think about, oh, he loves anime and video games and all different stuff. And that's true, yeah. But I think what surprise people is how active I'm in ministry. I'm in no paid position or whatever. I strongly believe in the local church and local outreach, through loving people where they're at and developing a relationship with them and showing them the love of Christ, and just bringing them along on an adventure.
I like that. So, growing up, who were the people that believed most in you, and how did that impact your confidence?
Man, that's a good one. It's mainly my family, but I, I bet a lot of parents could resonate with this. Is like you go I mean, especially in Oklahoma, it's you find about you find your kid, you don't like, because I got diagnosed pretty late because I was diagnosed in the 6th grade, and I wasn't even told I had autism in the 7th grade till the 7th grade. Um, and back then it was known as, Asperger's, not low support autism spectrum disorder. Um, so but parents, once their child's diagnosed, are like, "What's next? What do I do? I know he's being bullied or he's having trouble learning at school or whatever, or getting around." But it's like, you know, maybe they hand you a few pamphlets, but it takes more than like an intellectual level to take care of a kid with a disability. It takes experience and trial and error for most part, but for my parents, it was like, they got the diagnosis because I was being bullied harshly in 6th grade. They already knew I have ADHD because I was diagnosed with that in the 1st grade. Uh, but it's like, "Okay, what do we do?" And they were smart enough at that point, even though it cost them a lot, to put me in a private school for kids with learning and social disabilities called Town& and Country, and that changed my life throughout my whole lifespan so far. I mean, it costs, but it shouldn't be that way to where you have to spend thousands of dollars to, you know, make sure your children has a safe and fun, exciting place to learn. And even that school had problems with making it's probably different now because they've made a lot of changes, but I mean, you paid all these thousands of dollars, but you don't get like a, bougie experience.
But that
Um,
move that move excuse me, that moves us into the next question. When did you first learn you had autism, and how did that shape you into the person you are today?
I mean, I think at first my parents I don't even remember that like that much, but like I know I learned about it in 7th grade, got diagnosed in 6th. Don't even remember. I actually thought one therapy session was the one I got diagnosed and was another one my parents said. And man, it was a blur because I remember totally even afterwards kind of like masking. Not
Sure.
on like even knowing what masking was, but like and I don't even know if it was even masking. It was just probably really it was just trying to fit in with the other kids. And that's kind of what masking is in a way. Um, and not succeeding for the most part, but enough to because I was bullied so harshly in the 6th grade, I was able to see like I had like had the game over, got to try again with some new kids and learn from my mistakes.
Right.
But it wasn't good because I was being mean. um, but anyway, it's I remember telling my parents, saying, "Nah," and my siblings, "Nah, I don't have autism," for, like, a year or so. I don't know how long it lasted, not long, though, and then just accepted it and moved on. It wasn't a big deal, and it's still not a big deal, really. It's just a part of me that I have to learn to accept with, and that goes for everybody. They have a part of them that they have trouble with, whether it's a disability or not. So,
Yeah.
you know so, life experience, memory, whatever, but, um, that school, I mean, I had a lot of friends there. I still have quite a few friends there that I talk to, or hang out with, from high school, which is rare for most people. Hard nowadays, you don't ever hardly know anybody who still is
Right.
in contact with people from high
Sure.
school.
Sure.
And that led to me actually being me being in ministry because one of my friends, when we graduated in 2014, he called me when I was playing video games in 2017, and I went to a campus kind of hangout at this place, or was it church first? I think it was just the the college ministry hangout, and then, I had nothing better to do, and, I was just going to work full time and then coming home playing video games, rinse, repeat, so I was pretty bored. So,
What are some misconceptions about autism that you wish people understood better?
geez, I mean, the main thing they need to get is not every person with autism is the same. What's represented in the media is not what's representative of autism. I'm not saying there's some because be like someone that has the same kind of part of the spectrum that they represent in media, even though shows like the Big Bang Theory, and The Good Doctor. I think they over accentuate that, like instead of letting people know they're actually an actual person, this and not having to have their disability signs in every single episode unless it's part of their autism. I mean, um, but, I think that when people know that every person with autism is different, it's kinda like its own form of neurodiversity. It's like, there's ADHD, autism, and so on. But autism is kinda special in my mind because it's like a bunch of disabilities in one. 'Cause I have symptoms from that's mostly 'cause of my autism, like OCD, and other things that
Mhm.
caused by my autism, like depression, anxiety when I was a kid that I'm getting better with, or what as time goes on, as I'm learning to learn and cope and hang out with people and learn more social skills and stuff.
That's great, man. So, my question for you is how do you think being a person with autism spectrum disorder has influenced your strengths as a human being?
Oh, that's a good one. I mean, jeez, I mean, this is really funny. It's really cheesy and nerdy, but, there's a quote from my, favorite, TV show. It's an anime called My Hero Academia, and the character in it, he gets the strength, like, from, a person he really admires, but all the kids in his class had that strength from since they were born or since they were very young, and so he was on a learning curve to where, "Oh, crap, I have to manage the superpower, uh, I have to learn more about the superpower while everybody else is already, like, 10 grades ahead of me," and so he goes and tries very, very hard and is super successful. Same thing with, autism. It's like, okay, like, you're kind of, like, on a learning curve in a way, but it's more fun if you reframe it because you're like, "Oh, it's a challenge," and it's like it's not like and that's what I try the disability as because it's like, okay, if I can get through this challenge, not only can I prove to myself, but I can show the world I faced this challenge and was able to do this. You don't have the same challenge or even a similar
Right.
challenge, and yet you're not able to do this. And I can show the world no matter what weakness you have that the world views as a weakness, you can get by and succeed and even thrive. So for me, it was learning through mostly trial and error. And what helped a lot was, ministry, just having a constant social group, learning the encouragement and all that stuff. It helped me uh, learn that, oh, I do have strength. I can relate with not only people with other disabilities, but people who went through the same experiences that are kind of similar to my disability.
Right. So my next question for you, can you share a moment where you learned to advocate for yourself and what that experience taught you or what you might have learned from it?
Man, I think I can't think of one, but I think because there's so many different points. Because I think of advocating more like I know what it is, but like when I did it when I was younger, I think it was just like I wasn't even advocating to go to that school. I was just like, a kid. All I want to do is play video games.
Sure.
Um, but I think what really happened was advocating for myself was not even to other people. It's more to like it's hard to explain, but it's more like getting my driver's license when I was 26. That was something that because I always had a fear of driving. I've been practicing for what 10 years, not even 10 years, like 8, 7, 6 years. I'm trying to do the math. Yeah, 8 years or about. Just didn't have, I had my permit and everything. It was the driving part that scared the heck out of me. And my parents eventually they paid for lessons, and at that point, I had so much encouragement from family, friends, and a lot and people at my church that I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try this. And even so, I don't want to waste my parents' money because they paid for the driving lessons and then the practice test. And I did it, and I passed. And that was, it took me 2 tries doing the driving test because every time I took it, I was uh, really depressed every time I failed. So I wouldn't take it for years. And then it's really third time's the charm for me. But the advocating was just telling myself I can do this because a lot of people like, you know, people usually rationalize in their head, "Well, this and this happened, so I can't do this." But they don't really think about, "Oh, this and this happened, so I can do this." And that's it's like, yeah, advocating to others that you need something, that's very important, but advocating to yourself that you need something, that's important too.
I think that's a good point, that sometimes we do hold ourselves back more than other people
Yes.
do.
It's very common in the disability community, and it's usually, I seen, it's usually an individual start out very enthusiastic, and then growing up, stuff happens, bullying, parents divorcing or whatever, not
Mhm.
getting proper accommodations, and they just become this unmotivated, depressed individual,
Right.
uh, who and then they also don't have sometimes have the social skills, and that kinda goes into a further loop every time they fail an interview or whatever, and it's like I've seen no other there's only very few other, minorities have I seen, where, usually it comes where where the person is their own worst enemy in a way, but, you know, there's 2 enemies, the world and themselves, but they kinda feed off each other.
And that's kind of like what we learned in Partners in Policymaking. Alcon Lucy talks about, the social capital of how people with disabilities have 50% less social connections than able bodied people, which is just astounding to me.
Uh, uh, the times that number by zero point 0.5 if you live in a rural area or even more, because
For
it's insane how little support some of the rural areas have. They're basically
Absolutely.
forced to be shut-ins sometimes.
and consider that that's on average. I think the numbers specifically are that the average person that has a disability has like 25 meaningful connections, where the average able-bodied person has 150.
Yeah, and
So
I see people like myself who, mainly or just have a intellectual disability or like autism or something or ADHD, not even ADHD, but maybe, but mainly autism. I've seen this mainly in the autism community to where so many people who are low support like I am are living in fear that they don't wanna socialize or go out and,
Right,
to
sure.
each their own, but are you gonna even at least try instead of just living in fear? It's just it 'cause you gotta there's many, socializing groups fish in the sea, you know? There's the not every group you join is gonna be mean to you. There's people who are understanding and
Yeah,
kind and will
absolutely.
show you grace, and you'll learn from that in your social skills, even though you'll still struggle with social cues, you'll still get better socializing because that's happened to me, and yeah.
I was even that way too, man. Like, in my 20s in college, like I didn't socialize at all really. I was more comfortable, kind of like you said earlier, behind a video game screen. And I kind of made
That was
that.
me.
I went to college and I played video games and I hung out with family. That was my life until about 22 years old. And I was like, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of not living. And
Yeah, yeah,
so if
yeah.
we can pivot for a second, because then as a parent, I hear you both saying that you lacked the confidence to socialize.
yes,
Well, it was that it just I think it's all not only the stigma, but prior bad memories as well.
So as a parent, I want to ask you, what can parents do to build that confidence? One thing that I go back and forth on is um putting Julia in, like, there's always like specialized events for the Down syndrome community or specialized events, but then I also want to put her in with typical friends too. What can parents do to build that confidence?
I think a
So,
mix. I think a mixture of both, friend, because you want her to know that she is a part of the Down syndrome community and be an advocate and a warrior in that sense, but also you want typical friends to see somebody with special healthcare needs and really get a sense of, okay, this is this is normal, because if they don't see it, they're they're gonna their mindset's gonna be jaded when they reach our age and even older. They're not gonna be they have a hard time being accepting of somebody like Julia or Tyler or myself, that they see somebody that has different healthcare needs or someone in their community that looks different. They're not gonna understand it. So I would say, honestly, friend, I would say a mixture of both would be really the secret sauce, really.
and when we go into like a situation, like if I take her to a birthday party with typical friends, I see those friends kind of shying away from her. What should Do you have any suggestions for parents going into, like, just taking their child to the park or
So let me stop you there because I'll say little kids your girl's age, you know, they're innocent in a way, but they can also be cruel because they don't really understand the world yet. And so it's not really something that won't change until, they teach, the parents and their school system
Exactly.
teaches more about it's okay that to have a disability. It's actually pretty fun and adventurous to be friends with people who have a disability. And it's something that's really hard for kids to grasp unless it's taught in a simple way. And it's but for based on the question you asked before, I agree with Bryce. Um, if you as she grows up, if she's hanging around people with Down syndrome and different disabilities, she'll know what that's like. But she needs to also be with people who don't have what society calls a disability because uh because she'll know both worlds and she'll be able to help her friends that are not disabled understand people with disabilities, and she'll also be able to grab the hand of her fellow disabled peers and, drag them along to, neurotypical worlds, And, but the second thing I want to say about that question also is that when it comes to children with disabilities is that they need a gentle push. And yes, I'm gonna use the F word, the force word. It's like, I mean, when parents with neurotypical kids, not disabled kids, they force their kids to do stuff, even they don't like it. Why don't we do that for our kids who have disabilities? And because I see a real big culture with my other friends growing up and now who have disabilities, where their parents give them everything they want, or they don't like have it, give them any risk. Cause they're like basically like in the movie Bubble Boy.
So you're saying basically a little push into those awkward social situations.
Yes,
Yes, yes.
yes,
And not only that, but everything else in life. If they're not, why they've already failed if they don't try. You gotta have them try at least once or twice before, because they might like really enjoy it and it could change their life.
and
Then at that point, she's advocating for herself because she's going into a situation where she has to advocate with typical peers to, "Hey, I'm cool. You wanna be my friend."
right. We're
Not
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 saying
only that, but I would say you're advocating for her as a parent. You're advocating for her by making forcing her to do that stuff, because parents' job is to help a child grow, whether they like it or not.
yes. Like, we're not saying that we're gonna, take her out and, have her skydive, in a month.
Yeah, that's
But
insane.
but
Yeah,
if she wants to, go to the farm show, or if she wants to join a drama club or something, or get into acting or whatever and need a little push from mom or dad, let her do it.
okay.
Shout out to Stars on Stage. That's actually a cool acting group in BA. So
Yes.
Well, that's
Which
all really good advice. And kinda coming from that question too, what advice would you give to educators or employers who want to be more inclusive?
do your research. I mean, actually meet, because there's people out there surprisingly that don't have anybody on in their life that they're close to that are quote unquote disabled, but they have a friend that has a person in their life. And so if you want to see what people with disabilities live like, on the more severe side, I would say go to an immediate care facility and see how they're treated by staff usually, because this is a problem. I hear it's a common theme. You know, lack of resources, lack of funding, and you're wondering why you have these individuals keeping from ICFs and other places keep on coming towards your job, asking for a job, even though they're probably unqualified or not. And why they're so stubborn when it comes to that is because they want out of that situation. They want to be as independent as possible. And
sure,
eventually, if you don't accept them, they're going to lose hope and they're just going to accept life as it is. And that's the worst thing for them, because there's life is so beautiful and working is such a privilege and an honor we have as a society in America.
that's
Well,
beautiful, man.
yeah. Let's talk a little bit about partners in policymaking. What motivated you to apply for partners in policymaking?
You know, it's really funny. Shout out to Elijah Blankenship. So he was back where I worked. He was a CEO for a while, for a long while. And so I heard he was taking it, and I was like, "What's that?" And I think afterwards, he told me, and I asked my sister about it too, or somebody, and I was like, "You know what? I'm working at ICF, um, as back then it was as a administrative assistant. You know, it's like what I want to learn more about the myself and the people I work with,
Sure.
what's available to them and all that. And so it's like, give me something to do, um, you know, and so as well, and it was only once a month. I know there's homework and all that, and I didn't know I was getting to homework wise, but it was fun, and so I joined, and I learned a lot. I got to meet Bryce, and we have a good friendship right now. So
Yeah, absolutely,
mm,
man.
I got to meet you, Summer, and all the other people, and try to stay in contact with the group me somewhat, and you know, uh, get to see Jen a lot too, and uh, you know, sometimes I get to see Brad once in a blue moon, so it's fun.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, we had a great time. It was a great group. So, leading into that, what was the most powerful or eye-opening thing that you learned during the program, and what really motivated you to keep going?
Man, what kept me going is I already made so much progress in it that, and I was really enjoying myself, the main thing that was fighting with me was just, you know, going every month to Oklahoma City because at that point, I remember a week before or a week or 2 before, I never driven on the interstate to go to I never drove more than 30, 40 minutes, and it was a year or 2 before that was the first time on the highway, and I was so scared, of, like, going on that traveling to another city,
Sure.
and so, met a acquaintance there a week or 2 before and then came back. He goes, "Oh, that wasn't so bad," even though I got tired, but luckily I had some, caffeine gum, so that's what
Right.
because I pulled over, took that, and I was able to keep on going. But that was the only time it happened. I mean, every month besides November, because that was my free month for Partners in Policymaking, I was going to, driving to, OKC. Actually, the first month or 2, Elijah drove me because that was our deal, but then he was super busy and has all this other stuff to do, so I understand. Um, so he was able so I and it was good for me too, so he actually did me a favor, because it built some more confidence to where driving to OKC and back was really cool, and while I was there, I got to try some of the restaurants I wanted to go to, like Oishi and all that, but, I would say, the homework was the hardest part besides that, just getting distracted all the time, but, the main thing I got out of it, though. And this is if anybody is listening to this, this is why even if you don't go to Partners in Policy Making, you should look this up. Uh, I'd say 3 things. The institutions like HISM, but the main one that you need to look at, and it's on YouTube, they have is, the Willowbrook. It was for me, in my mind, from a couple stories I heard, and I didn't watch all the video yet, I don't know if I will, 'cause it's very hard watch, and I'm usually good at hard watches, but this is kind it was kinda weird. In my mind, it's kinda like a miniature Holocaust in a institution in New York. That's how bad it was. But you go to the, J J James Rivera or something like that has an interview that was on national news and that's the video I'm talking about,
It would have
where
been
he goes in and
Geraldo
see
Rivera.
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah, Geraldo Rivera, and he goes in, sees a bunch of naked, skinny people in a dark room with staff doing nothing. It's like seeing a zombie movie almost, and, so sad, and other video is the video of the longest federal sit in a building, uh, I think it was California, I believe, called, and there's a little documentary that called The Power of 504 where,
Okay.
a disability group that was actually helped a little bit by the Black Panthers, a lot of people with disabilities, it wasn't even just the group, it was just all over, were heading over to that federal building, just traveling to it and sitting in there for weeks. And, at some point, they actually had to shut off entrance. They couldn't nobody could go in. Supplies couldn't even go in at one point, except because they weren't able to communicate with them outside of the building. So what they did is that some people knew American Sign Language and showed the people through the window through American Sign Language the supplies they needed. And that's not in the video, but I found that out through the speaker that we had, Michael Beers. Shout out to him.
Yeah. Michael Parrish.
And they were able to get supplies that way, which helped pave the way to the longest federal sit-in ever, and the eventual passing of the 504 Act.
Yeah, that was an incredible story, and the way Michael told the story was just impeccable, and
But
You would
but
be an amazing guest to have on this.
I know.
those
Yes.
yes, Willowbrook and the Power of 504 are the big things. But really surprised me, and what makes me say about all this partners in policy making all that is learning about ugly laws, just a little bit of it. That in the early 1900s and before that, in America, if you had like a disfigurement or like an obvious disability, you weren't allowed in public. And I didn't know about that. That's like a hidden knowledge, American knowledge. It's like, why don't we have Willowbrook, HISM, for Oklahoma, and then 504, the stair crawl, and ugly laws in our history books. We don't know. I didn't even know what the ADA was, the Americans with Disability Act was when I was in high school or middle school or whatever. It's not talked about. We're
Yeah,
kind of
Right.
like
I'm hoping that we're gonna be able to do an entire episode on just the Capitol crawl.
I would love that.
that was
I've
so
got
cool.
I've got a woman that said she was there, and so I'm trying to talk her into being on here. So was I the only one that was crying that first weekend whenever they showed the I just bawled whenever they
Uh,
showed the Willowbrook and Hissam.
oh, no, I
I
mean,
was really mad. I remember being mad, but I would have probably cried if I wasn't too tired. I don't know. Though I should have been if I was tired, I should have been crying more. I don't know. I just didn't
seeing
cry for
the
some reason.
seeing the Christmas from Willowbrook, Geraldo Rivera, like, thing made me sick, and my mom told me I remember seeing that as a little girl in the '70s when that came out, and she was just mortified,
Yeah.
absolutely mortified.
My husband actually had an uncle that was in the institute here in Enid, which was, um that was also featured in that video, and his uncle was adopted, so he was an adopted brother of my husband's dad, and he had Down syndrome and spent his adult life in an institution.
And that's wild to me that we learned in Partners that HISM was closed in '94, but they didn't actually close, institutions in Oklahoma until 2015. To put that in perspective, guys, I graduated high school in 2015, so
I
that's crazy.
graduated a year before that, but that's insane. I kind of feel bad for not knowing this, but are there any more institutions in any other states?
I believe I just did some research this summer, on institutions in Texas. I was trying to help a mom out. Um, her ex-husband, was trying to get their daughter who has Down syndrome put in an institution, and
Mhm.
so I went and looked it up for her, and there are some in Texas.
I mean,
That's the
these
only one I know for sure of.
okay, so there's still something to fight the institutions to fight against, but
Mhm.
the institution against the institution and all of it. But anyway, yeah, and I would also say some of the inmate care facilities uh, are basically like institutions that were relabeled. They're like I wouldn't
Yeah,
say as bad as institutions, but from what I've heard about other the ICS, from what not the one I was at per se, but from what other hearing about other ones, maybe more so likely in the rural areas, that they're basically institutions but relabeled ICS.
yeah,
They weren't
and there
institutions
are
beforehand, but there might as well be an institution. They were just an ICF that kind of acts just like an institution.
correct.
So
So, what is the moment you realized, Tyler, that you felt that you belonged in not only disability advocacy, but you felt like you had a home in the disability community?
man, I would say initially I wouldn't even call it a home. It was more like I belonged somewhere.
Right.
Was school at Town and Country. I mean, the first year or 2, I was kinda really mean, and then I realized my mistakes, from that, and then I was just, "I'm just gonna be me," and it was
Sure.
still not the me I wanted it to be. I mean, we're always striving towards, a betterment of self. I mean, but I remember just having a friend group there, uh, from, like, 8th gr I wanna say started more in, like, 8th or ninth grade. I found a friend group, we all liked, video games a lot and, some anime. There was, like, geez, about around 10 of us, but mainly it was me and the guys in there. We'd play Xbox 360 all the time. Most of them had autism. My best friend at the time had ADHD. Um, and what surprised me after that was after high school, we just disconnected. I mean, it was wild. And
Right.
after that, I felt like very isolated because, I just went to school for a bit and then, and work. So I was working full time and going to school some for like a year or 6 months. But then I just got out of school and because I was going to TCC, but I got out of school and went to work just to stay working full time. So as I mentioned earlier, I was just going home and playing video games after clocking out. I didn't even have my license back then. My dad was driving me. I was working for my dad, just an office job, and was still kind of feel kind of lonely, and all that stuff. I mean, I don't remember really how I felt. I know I didn't feel as good as I do now, with all the friends I have, but it wasn't really I felt like a home till I got at the church I'm in now and just the friend group I have from there. I mean, I have a lot of friends outside of church too, but a lot of the friends I have at church, I mean, they've helped me immensely with so many different things, and just knowing that I'm not alone and building me up into some like to help other people like me who I encounter
Sure.
in and outside of church, to help them in their path when it comes to the spiritual and non-spiritual stuff.
That's amazing, man. Um, why do you think it's important to have people with disabilities be involved in not only personal advocacy choices, but policy choices statewide and nationally?
Man, and this is I think this is why the disability movement hasn't made as big an impact, mainly, for the not only statewide, but federally. I think the main point is that the parents are the only ones advocating, but the main more than that is just transportation for people with disabilities.
Sure.
People who wanna advocate at the Capitol have a hard time doing so because of transportation issues. People
Correct.
advocating outside of the Capitol that well, anywhere that there needs to be advocacy for people with disabilities who want to speak up are having a hard time doing it outside Zoom meetings and online because they don't have the transportation, either because they're incapable to an intellectual disability or a physical disability, and they don't have the funds to get a car that is accustomed to that. I have a friend with he has a TBI. He drives, but he doesn't drive at night, but he has a special car, but he's lucky to have it because he has a really good nice family, has enough money to got him a car that works in an accommodating way to where even though like half of his body doesn't like work right, he could still drive pretty good, and drive. And he even got he had to retake the licensing test, I believe, and he passed because of after the TBI, I believe. Um, which was amazing. I used to work with him for a bit at a coffee shop. He's an amazing guy.
Right.
But it just goes to show it's like, if you have the right accommodations and as technology progresses, it's pretty much the sky's the limit for even mostly the majority of people with disabilities. I mean, and it's the thing to advocate, the big media lie is like these people aren't capable or they're awkward and weird. Well, there's people who are incapable, awkward, and weird that are not what the society deems disabled. And I don't even wanna say that there's people who's not capable anyway. It's like, how far are they willing to go and what accommodations are available?
Right. Absolutely, man.
Can we go right back to what you said about the parents are the ones advocating? And that's one reason why I wanted to do a podcast, but I didn't want to ever have a podcast episode without a person with a disability. And this is something I've been pushing on my page because I see parents speaking up and they say they're advocating, but it's apparent they're not listening to people with disabilities.
Correct.
Well, not only that, I heard stories. I mean, there's this I'm not gonna go into details, but there was this parent who was very passionate at the Capitol about something for their loved one, and they burned many bridges, not only for themselves, but other parents and advocates at the Capitol, because they wanted to try to get this thing passed that they've been working on for years, and they weren't going about it the right way. And if it's like you wanted to advocate for your kid, and unless you have a disability or similar disability as them, depending on the situation you want to advocate for them about, how do you know what they need, especially if they're nonverbal? I mean, it's like, do they even want you advocating for them? Because some kids, like my brother, for instance, he's very content with his life. He doesn't work. He volunteers sometimes. He likes playing on his he does not he likes playing on his piano. He doesn't really know how to, but he likes listening to the tones and stuff, playing on his iPad. He's at the cusp of low support, if not moderate support, or not even he might even be low support. But he's very content with his life, just uh hanging out every week with his friends and his Tuesday dinners and and volunteering and all sorts of other stuff, but, like, he doesn't work and he's not interested in romance, but yet he has this very contentness and happiness in life. Even though I want to kind of push him to work and try new things, he's very content. And
I don't know. I as a parent, I'm seeing a lot of parents that are coming on and they're pushing, for instance, I see a lot of parents saying, "Well, the R word doesn't offend me, so why are we fighting this?" And I don't understand how, as a person that never had a disability, of course, maybe the R word hasn't offended you as someone
Right.
that
True.
hasn't
as a
had.
as a person who has been called that word throughout, grade school, like mostly in middle school before I went to town country, um, I half agree, but I also half disagree. I agree that's an offensive word, but I don't think you can outlaw a word. I mean, even if it is, it's still gonna be used. I think there's bigger issues at hand, like living, like, people who need to actually have supports to help them actually survive. I mean, you can't, like, it's kinda like the other words that people say about other minorities, like, you can't there's no big movements that I know of that are trying to outlaw those words, but we as a disability group are trying to outlaw the R word. Is this some kind of media stunt? Because it's like it's an offensive word, sure, but you cannot stop people from saying it. You can't literally take the knowledge of the word from their brain. You're not by outlawing it, it's also a very risky thing because, okay, we outlawed the R word, nobody's allowed to say it. Well, what's next? It's kind of like it could accelerate, and that's why a lot of the politicians are kind of sketchy about it. And I see why, but
Yeah.
I agree, it's a horrible word. It shouldn't be said, but we can't make a law, and we can't force people not to say it. And if we force people not to say it, they still have the same feelings. They're just not going to say the word.
Yeah, and I don't know of any. Is there legislation trying to outlaw it?
I know Special Olympics and I believe Best Buddies, but I know Special Olympics for sure is no, I don't know if they're trying to get laws to effect, but I know they're having people sign a petition to personally stop saying the R word, which I think is great as long as they're not
Yeah.
trying to, you know, make it to where it's like, oh, let's make a law that says this, because that's like you could be making a law to where people are getting the right accommodations and the right individual care. But instead, you're choosing to outlaw a word that is horrible, but you can't stop people from saying.
Right. Which kind of leads into the next question here. How can families and allies support advocacy without speaking over people with disabilities?
First of all, I think to kind of work on that point towards that point, I want to say if you're gonna be advocating online, unless you have a disability that prohibits from you doing something else, I think you need to put your mouth, your keyboard where your money where your mouth is, or money where your keyboard is. Not even money per se, but you need to take action outside of being a keyboard warrior. I mean, you yeah, I see it so not only in the disability community, but there's so many communities where they're just, "Oh, if I say the right stuff, that's gonna change the world." It's like, no, you gotta have put some risk and sacrifice into it.
Yeah.
You gotta build up a following, and not just online presence, but actual where other groups respect you. I mean, that's how MLK did it. I
Can you kinda
mean,
give some examples of how you can advocate outside of social media?
yeah, just volunteer. Jeez, it's like get to do research, either online or firsthand. Because most of my experience and knowledge comes from firsthand, not online. I learned a lot from trial and error and just from talking to people.
Right.
I mean, and it's more efficient. I love learning firsthand, and it's more a little bit more risky, but for me, it's more efficient because I'm horrible at reading books because I'll get distracted easily. Um, I'm getting better at it, but I mean, lately it's been hard. Um, so it's uh, it's volunteering, becoming a friend with someone with disability, and learning more about them. It's if you're just gonna, because there's people, even in groups like religion, like who are just like, oh yeah, I believe this, and like And it's like they'll like, "Oh, yeah, praise God," and they only go to church every, like and be around what people that, and they don't worship together with other Christians, for whatever reason, uh, either from church hurt or whatever, but, like, it's what's the word? It's like they don't out aren't acting out the faith they believe in, and that's the better way to say it, and I'm gonna even go to the opposite ends of it and still proclaim it online, um, and I've seen it just throughout ministry, just, um, when you have a church or any community where things don't get personal, it's gonna die. Or it's gonna be turned into a big corporation where it's all about money and not about people.
When we were making our advocacy plans, I asked you, Tyler, I said, as a mother of 5-year-old little girl that has a disability, she can't tell me how she wants me to advocate. I asked you, how would you want your mother to advocate for you when you were 5? And you said in the church.
Oh, jeez. Oof.
Do you remember
That brings up
that?
another memory. That brings up yeah, I honestly, it partners in policymaking that, some of it's a blur. I think I remember talking to you, yes, and the other parts. Was that during partners?
That was during partners. That was the
Yes.
last day. We were making
Mhm.
our advocacy plans, and I was at a blank. And that's one reason, like, I'm kinda I blank because I'm like, I don't know how I don't have a disability. I'd like to hear from other people that have disabilities explain
So
to
I
me.
get so excited about this, and it's like, so with your daughter, she's still 5, she could I don't know if Down syndrome I'm not knowledgeable about that, but I don't know if it because in autism, I'm hoping it's like that because autism, as the child grows, they could become nonverbal to verbal, even become, like, geniuses or whatnot, even it just like anybody else, it's just or not, it's kind of a the hand they're handed. But, because I dated a girl who, went on dates with a girl who was nonverbal till she was 7, but hit her head constantly, and, she just got her master's degree. And so, I don't know if Down syndrome works that way, but maybe she can, communicate with you someday, and if not, there's probably accommodations she can learn, like the iPad thing where it's like, she presses a button or like pictures on a screen and be able to tell you what she wants.
Well, and that was my I don't I don't know if you realize this or not, but the whole reason I took partners is so I could learn to advocate, so I could teach her how to advocate. Because my
Right.
Yeah.
advocacy will not be as powerful as hers will be.
Well, and the thing we get like I said, you need to push your kid. That's when it comes to the important stuff, like, getting a car driving if they're able to, or getting a job. But when it comes to stuff like personal, like what stuff they wanna do, I don't think we should force people with disabilities to advocate if they don't want to, because some people, like my brother, are perfectly fine just living a life just like anybody else, and that's kinda beautiful in its own way.
Yes.
Right,
Like
and I agree, like, her advocacy story will have to be her own,
Yeah.
yes.
um, and that but to some point, I kind of disagree with that because I think we all have to be our own advocate.
Yes, but that
I
and I
even
agree
have
with
to
that, I agree with
advocate for
that.
myself, and she has to advocate like, I sent her to school. She has to go to school without me, and she's
Mhm.
just gonna have more and more if she wants to be independent, she's gonna have to learn how to advocate, how to voice what she
Because
desperately
you're gonna
needs
meet
in this
trials,
world.
and I agree with you on that because you have to advocate for yourself, and she will, because every kid and every adult, uh, with or without disabilities has challenges and blessings in their life where they'll have to find a solution to the problem they have, or a way to spread the blessing if they want to.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so it's when it comes to your daughter, she's gonna come up against a wall, and she's gonna have to make a decision. Do I just keep hitting my head against it, or am I gonna get help from either my parents or someone I trust in?
Right.
So that leads us into a really good question. What does independence mean to you specifically, Tyler, as somebody that lives with a disability and really wants a life? What does independence look like for you?
I wanna say I learned just working for an ICF, when I worked for ICF for, geez, over 3 years, just learning about my friends, theirs lives. It's just like independence is so important, but independence has it needs it's we're not guaranteed anything in life. Um, but independence, man, it's so important. But when it comes to independence, you have to be responsible too. And what I've seen is like if you're not willing to wake up for work in time, you lost the independence of having a job. It's like, how do we consistently integrate uh just independence in people with disabilities lives to where they're responsible with it and it's not dangerous to them?
Right,
And
right,
you know, and because we live people without disabilities, we live, you know, with our own kinds of, you know, I have a disability, you have a disability, blah blah blah. We have our own risks and challenges, dignity of risk and all that. But you know, there's guardianship for a reason, and there's choice based, you know, what are that other things called that we learned about. But guardianship does have a place and time. There's some people who with disabilities who have not can repeatedly make the same mistake over and over again, and they're like, okay, you're gonna eventually, you know, really hurt yourself or kill yourself. You need guardianship. That's reasonable. But there should also be a way that they can work out of that guardianship if they prove themselves.
right.
But
What
it's like
what goals do you have currently, professionally and personally?
that's a good question. I kind of tried to past a couple questions. I kind of went and said, "Oh, I want to answer this first, then answer the next question," because it's like even to a question that wasn't even asked. So I get super excited. The personal goals. I mean, right now I'm working till full time. Want to get enough savings to move out, and once I know my rent, or I want to own because right now this mortgage payment is basically the same price as rent. Um, uh, Pretty much now. And once I know that and know all my expenses, I'm gonna go to Regent Bank and sorry I met them once, but they said I need it once I move out is when I should start investing because I want to start investing early. So if I could retire early if I want and do other stuff I love doing. Whether it's like, you know, volunteering and all ministry and all that, you know, because I don't want, you know, it's something I think is cool, because I wanna start working full time again because I enjoy working in the disability world. Even though it's not as profitable as it should be, financially, it's really rewarding to me to see people who've been through the same things as I've been and see them succeed in different ways, or learning about them and learning about the problems they're facing that I never knew existed.
Right.
It and just loving them. I mean, it's really hard for me, but I get very attached to the people I work with, staff and clients, but mainly it's been the clients. Uh, but it's my goal after that is I don't know if I want to go back to school or not. It depends. I might have to if I'm not able, especially if I have a family or before I have a family. You know, just to be able to live and be semi comfortable. I don't want to be too comfortable because being too comfortable produces stagnation most of the time. Um, but I just like I do want to get married. I might want to have a kid someday. I go off and on about that. Do I want a kid or not? Blah blah blah. It's just like you know, and that's a whole another box of worms. But, you know, there's just a lot I wanna do. I mean, I every 6 months to a year, so I have another idea in my head. "Oh, I wanna create kinda like a sanctuary where people can, you know, learn about God and just like or like just like, you know, through osmosis, you know, just like, oh, yeah, it's just anime movie night," you know? And just, you know, have some cards, just create relationships, not let it be, like, forced upon, preached upon. It's just like that's comes for a later time. You gotta get to know the person before they can trust you and, you know, see why is your life different than mine? Even though you're going through all this awful stuff, why do you keep on living and all that stuff, you know? And it's kinda that thing. Uh, what else do I wanna do? Jeez. Oh, this I'm kind of pretty simple. It's basically, you know, make a semi-comfortable amount of money and maybe have a family one day. That's pretty much it, you know, and, you know, still be involved in advocacy and all that stuff, but you know, just I'm not gonna dream too hard to where I'm too disappointed, but, you know,
Right.
I just like, there's like one time I wanna be like, "Oh, yeah, I'm gonna be the the MLK of disability role, and I'm like, if that happens, it happens. If not, if not. You shouldn't make a big deal. It's just try hard, and you'll do what you do, and people respect that.
Right. So the final question I have for you is kind of an open mic question. If you could tell a younger version of yourself one thing that you've learned in your advocacy journey and kind of tell yourself one thing or reassure yourself one thing from a younger version of yourself, what would that be?
That's a very good one, and I've thought about this before. I think I was thinking about it yesterday. I mean, but what I had one thing to say. I was like, when it comes to the big stuff in life, like driving, school, working, even college, like when I went, and romance. Uh, don't give up. Keep trying, and don't like take years to try again. Try again, and don't give up. Because if I'll be honest, I'll be further than I am in life if I got my license when I was 18 rather than I was 26. If I didn't like pay, if I spent more time than I want to do in college and try and figure out, okay, what I want to do major in, I probably have a degree by now. The reason I left college was, I didn't knew what I wanted to do. I was working on basics. Um, but it just try. It's just there's such not that it, that and that's like the essence of adventure is trying because adventure has ups and downs, successes and failures. An adventure is super boring if you never a story is super boring if everything goes right all the time.
Yeah. Every good movie has a plot twist, and I think that
Yeah.
everybody's life is kinda like a movie. There's no, you know, journey to the destination. Why live?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a and that comes with disabilities, and most people I encounter with disabilities, especially, I don't know, like, if they're certain disability, but a lot of them I encountered, consider a little bit more interesting than,
Really?
my neurotypical friends or non-disabled friends in a way, because it's like, "Oh, wow, they have this kinda some of them even have, like, this, like, underdog story, and it's like, wow, that's so much more interesting than a lot of my other friends."
Well, Tyler,
And
if people remember just one thing about this conversation today, what do you want it to be?
man, I think I mean, I can ramble on, but I think those videos I talked about, that will if that doesn't spark a fire in you or at least a concern, I think you might need to go check yourself
And
because I think
you're talking about the Willowbrook and his,
the was Willowbrook and 504, those 2 videos, and what I said, Willowbrook is what is people with disabilities when you treat them like trash, and, and 504 is the resilience and the power of people with disabilities.
I love that.
excellent, excellent. Yeah, those are great. Well, Tyler, we appreciate you being here today. It's good to see you again.
And we look forward to having you again on Where the Ramp Ends in the future, my friend.
I hope so. I hope I have a lot more to talk about. I'm afraid I hope I didn't spilt all the beans already of this one.
We would definitely have you on again, and, I think we do have a lot more to talk about, but for this episode, we're going to end it, and we look forward to talking to you again soon, and, for all our listeners, Bryce, you wanna sign off?
For this is the Ramp Ends. I'm Bryce.
And I'm Summer.
We will
And
see
I'm
you again
Tyler.
soon.